What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with another album review for you guys, and today I am talking about the latest offering from Swiss Death Thrashers, Messiah, with CHRISTUS HYPERCUBUS. So this also came out on March 1st, and I forget the name of the label, but it's a small label, I know that for a fact. And I believe this is their 7th studio full-length, 6th or 7th, somewhere in that number range. And this is a band I know of because they're kind of seen as like a bit of a cult band in the underground extreme metal world, kind of mashing a little bit of like early death metal and thrash metal, particularly German thrash, like mixing it together. And I know of their first two albums, although that second one, Extreme Cold Weather, known for its infamously terrible album art. But musically, they're very energetic and somewhat catchy. But yeah, this is a new one, and this is their first one in 4 years, and the second one in their recent return after not putting out anything since the late 90s. And well, we get started with Sikho Alin. Starts off with this like eerie, clean melody and like female choir. Then you get some like death metal chugs, and that's kind of the thing that you get with this album. It's like you get mostly thrash metal riffs, but with death metal chugging grooves and breakdowns. So it's like a nice blend of the two is what you get on this album, and it does that straight away with that opening track, and then it gets into a really cool like double time thrash rhythm, solid groove, and then one of the big things that stood out to me the most about this album is the bass work. Like, the bass is pretty up in the mix. It's audible in the mix. You can actually hear individual moments with the bass, and it happens across the board on this entire album, whether it be a notable bass line or even a bass melody to kind of take over while the guitars are either building atmosphere or kind of accentuating a certain transition within the song, and showcases its own voice in a big, big way. Then we get to the title track, and this one got lots of nods, in my opinion, to Slayer. Like, the opening riffs made me think of Slayer, but it's in a chugging rhythm. And then suddenly out of nowhere, you get these like Middle Eastern melodies that kind of get sprinkled in throughout this song. And another thing I forgot to note too, the lead work kind of varies again from like squealy dive bombs to solid melodies. So the lead work's kind of all over the map, like you would associate with like death thrash bands, especially of this magnitude. Then we run into a couple songs where you get weird song titles. So first up, Once Upon a Time Nothing. This one has lots of really cool thrashy riffs, very much like Slayer, but also Exodus, I would say, and there's some dive bombs galore on this track. But also, to kind of add a little bit of atmosphere, there's some faint tremolo melodies in the background, although it's not very forward in the mix because the main guitars, like the rhythm guitars, are still center stage, while the tremolo melodies are kind of more in the background. Then we get into probably one of the weirder titles, Speed Sucker Romance. And this is one of the longer tracks at like over 5.5 minutes. And this one takes a completely different turn. Like, this one goes for more of a Death Doom vibe. Like, this is a Death Doom song, kind of like Triptychon meets Asphyx. And there's even some like faint crawling riffs that pop up in the background as well. Again, kind of similar to the previous track, where it's more in the background and not really center stage. But then you do get this like really cool dynamic where the song pauses for a moment, boom, into doomy riffs and even some cool bends on the guitars as the song comes to a close. Centipede Bite. This one got me into thinking I'm listening to Sodom, especially the main riff is like a faster version of the song After the Deluge off of Obsessed by Cruelty, but it's just done at a faster pace. And there's even some like nice little chugging riffs here, some solid groove. And then really starting from this song onward, when it came down to leads, they were more dynamic, like going for more harmonies and melodies within the lead work, and even some of the melodic riffs getting harmonized, which is really cool. And then one of the only times on the album you get a triplet chug that feels very much like Florida death metal. Then we get into Soul Observatory, and this one, the double time riff and rhythm felt very much like Testament to me, like something off of like a modern Testament album, but with some cool dive bombs coming in again, some more groove, slows down a little bit to doomy territory, and bringing back more bass melody. Acid Fish, probably the dumbest song title of the entire album, and this one goes for a little bit more of a punky approach. Like, the riffs and the grooves kind of have more of a hardcore and a punk feel, so it's almost like Exodus, as there's even like a little bit of a D-beat vibe going on here, but again, more harmonized melodies and leads towards the end. Then we close off with the two-parter, the Venus Baroness. Venus Baroness 1 was very strange, mostly because I don't know if it was intentional or they didn't notice it until listening to the final masters, but the guitars sound off-key from each other, and it's like, So that song kind of fell flat for me because it sounded like the guitars weren't in tune or in key with each other, but the rhythms was solid and more cool bass lines going on, and it also does drag a little bit, as it is the longest track at about 6.5 minutes, but it does kind of drag on a little bit. But then you close with the Venus Baroness Part 2, and this one, a lot better. There's some chugging riffs going on, the guitars actually sound in tune, and another bass melody. So yeah, whenever it comes to the ingredients, like I said, you're mainly going to be getting thrash riffs, death metal chugs, some bass melodies coming up here and there, some harmonies with the guitars, especially in the back half, and brutal vocals. Like, I'll admit the vocals on this album are quite disgusting for a death thrash album. It's definitely closer to a death metal vocal approach than a thrash metal vocal approach. As far as the complaints that I had, again, the Venus Baroness 1, not only does it drag, but the guitar sounded off-key. Some of the song titles I thought were a little too silly, same with some of the lyrics. And then there's the song Please Do Not Disturb While I'm Dying. Kind of didn't need to be there. It was just an interlude to go into Soul Observatory. But aside from those complaints, this album's pretty solid for what it was. It's just, I feel like the goofy nature could have been toned down a little bit, as well as some fixings on the guitars on the Venus Baroness 1, as well as maybe not have that song drag on so much. So for those reasons, I'm going to give this album a 3 out of 5. I think it's a good album for what it is, but yeah, definitely some stuff needs worked on, but still pretty enjoyable listen. It's intense, it's riffy. What more could you want? But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.